Welcome to today's Second Act Living podcast, a place where people in the second act of their life can come together to talk and pray, laugh, admonish about everything that this stage of life has to throw at you. So please help me welcome today's guest, Julie Lynn Ashley. Julie Lynn holds a Master's of Science in Thanatology, which is Death, Grief, and Bereavement, is a member of the Association for Death Education and Counseling, mom to two young adult sons, Landon and Kyle, and wife to her very best friend of 30 years, Doug, who is a lead pastor in Texas. Julie Lynn worked and volunteered in the hospice industry for years, and there developed a God-given passion to support grieving people. She now has her own grief support ministry, both in person and online, where she works with people one-on-one who need support following a death loss. And you can find her at www.julielynashley.com. So thank you so much, Julie Lynn, for coming on the show, for being willing to talk about reinventing yourself in midlife. That's such a fun, exciting topic.
Thank you so much for having me, Anne-Marie. I love the conversations that you have on this podcast, so applicable to those of us that are in midlife.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind. And honestly, I've said this before, this whole podcast was birthed out of my own struggle of like, I don't know what's going on, but things are different and I need to figure it out. So, cool. So how we usually start is we do some rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I am ready. This sounds fun.
Okay, good. Okay. So all of the questions have something to do with midlife. It's all like something like that. When going on a date with your hubby, do you choose a romantic candlelit dinner or Netflix and pizza?
Netflix and pizza.
Yes. Yes. So what is your current show? Do you have one?
We are old souls. So we like the old black and white movies, musicals, those types of things that are, from years and years ago. So that's kind of our jam. That's what we like.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I have my daughter for the musicals. My husband, he'll humor me, but it's not his thing. So when going on a trip, do you pack your whole closet or do you travel light?
Everything. Pack it all. Everything.
How do you know what you're going to need?
Right.
How do you know what you're going to want to wear? That's what I. So.
We're road trippers. So as much as I can take, I'm taking.
So are most of your trips road trips or are they like flying or both?
It's a mix, but we err more toward the side of road tripping just because we can stop when we want to. And you can take all your full size stuff. It's fun.
Where are you finding your joy in midlife?
In those things which I had nothing to do with planning, and in those things which intimidate me.
Oh, you find joy in it. Wow. That's mature. I don't know if I could say the same. Things that you don't plan. I can get behind that, but wow. Okay. That's amazing. What has been your favorite vacation?
My husband surprised me with a trip to Boston when I turned 40, which was a while ago.
We don't need to know. What is your bucket list vacation?
Ireland.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, that's me too. What is one new skill or hobby you have wanted to learn?
This is one I've joked around with my sons about. We love laughing together, and I'm going to get to try this in 2 months. Archery is something that I've been interested in. And so I was talking with my son about this, and he's like, Mom, aren't you a little old to be Robin Hood?
Oh.
And I'm like, you just never know. There are new adventures at this stage of life. And so I'm trying it in a couple months. So
that's exciting. You don't have to be Robin Hood. You can be Katniss if you're into
right.
Yeah. What is one way you stay connected to your kids?
I have 2 boys, so 13 by 9 pans of food is how I stay connected to my kids.
Are they both local? Or they both live pretty close?
So I've got one that's local and one that isn't. And what I describe to people is, you know how you did care packages when they were in college? The care package just changed form. So now it might be inviting my youngest over for a meal after I know he's had a hard day at work or something like that. So it's a connecting point for us, and especially with boys. With my older one, he is doing shift work at this point. He's a chemist, and so I made Christmas dinner, threw it in a cooler, and we drove to where he was and took him Christmas dinner that way. So we're finding new ways to be connected, but a lot of it's through 13 by 9 pans of food.
That's awesome. What is your go-to stress reliever?
Walking outside.
Yeah, that's a good one. Nature is a big one for me. What's worse, hot flashes or forgetting why you walked into a room?
Hot flashes.
Hot flashes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just no getting around it. Like you just have to wait it out. You just have to wait it out.
Right. And I've been fortunate. I've heard, people that have had them to the extreme, and mine have not been that way. But it's the element of surprise sometimes.
What is one piece of advice you would give your 20-something self?
Inquire of the Lord. He has plans that are so much bigger than you ever could imagine. So when you come up to something, and really all the time, inquire of the Lord.
That's so good. My sister who I interviewed last month, I asked the same question and she pretty much gave the same answer. She was like, A, chill, and B, go to God first.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah. Yeah, at this stage, we are looking at, like probably a lot of people are in midlife, a possible downsize. And so my husband and I were out this weekend. We pulled off in this cul-de-sac where we were looking, and we just stopped there and prayed, Lord, what do you want with this? And so it's that inquiring of the Lord that I wish I would have done a lot more of when I was 20.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have loved to have had an older woman come alongside me and give me that kind of advice, because I did not do that. I did not do that as much as I should have. So yes, absolutely. So in talking in our pre-interview, it was so exciting for me because it was so positive, and it was all about reinventing yourself in midlife. And you're just such a positive, lovely woman of like, it's all about growth and it's all about thinking what you can do and that kind of thing. So this has been like a really exciting topic for me because I feel like transition is like the buzzword for midlife. Transitioning a whole different, like everything is different and feels different and looks different. And sometimes I think that can be construed as like a negative thing.
Yes.
If we're not careful. So to spin it in a ultra positive way, I'm really excited about. So one of the ways that we talked about you reinvented yourself midlife is through your career.
Right.
So when did you start feeling a tug to change your careers?
So this was 10 years ago, and this was sparked by a geographic move. So we had spent years and years in Colorado. That's where our boys were little. And my husband was now it was a job change for my husband in the state of Texas. And so I'm new to town. And when you're new in town, you're looking for, how can I make friends? I've got to start all over again with everything: doctor, dentist, all your friendship. I mean, there's so many things that have to start new. So I didn't have any friends in town at the time. I just had acquaintances. Mm-hmm. And it was an acquaintance that said, Julie Lynn, would you be interested in coming to volunteer at the hospice where I work? And when we talked about in the rapid fire questions, those things that intimidate me, mm-hmm. And that was one of them. It was like, I've never done this before. And hospice has such a connotation of being so awful and so sad. And so there was this, how could I step into this? How is that even possible? But in a new geographic space, a new emotional space of starting over, it's like, why not? Try it. And so I went to volunteer there, and almost immediately there was something that God put inside me, a passion for the bereavement side of hospice once the loss has occurred. It was something I couldn't explain. And what happened in that was there was this hunger in me to know more. Um, and I had sworn up and down I was never going back to school. My kids are in high school at this point, or close to high school. And so I had sworn up and down I would never go back to school. But now there was something inside me that was like, Julie Lynn, you have to know what they know if you want to help people who are grieving. And so it began this journey for me of a grad student in my 40s that I never would have imagined, studying and learning and having a blast learning, because I knew what was on the other side of it, and that was helping people. So becoming a grad student, and then years later, opening my own business, and working with people all over the world, people locally. And the adventure of that, the journey of that has been incredible. It's something I never would have expected in the middle of my life. And I've absolutely loved it.
It's so exciting. It's just so exciting. So 10 years, it's been a 10-year journey.
Yeah. Yes, 2025 will mark 10 years. I can remember exactly where I was. I know one of your previous guests, Karen Altizer, has talked about grief share. And I was sitting in grief share as a bereavement intern at this hospice. And God washed over me from head to toe that night. It was December of 2015. He said, Julie Lynn, this is Act 2. This is what I want you to do with the rest of your life. And I couldn't, being a planner, I had no idea how that was going to happen. But I knew that this was something that God had done, that nothing I had planned, nothing I had imagined, and in the middle of my life. So
yeah,
that was the surprise and the fun of it.
That's awesome. So you've kind of mentioned what you were called to do and what prompted you to call it. So what exactly are you doing now? Like, what does your life look now professionally?
So there's basically a couple different things I'm involved with right now. One of them obviously is vocationally. I work with grieving people all over the world. So I'm Zooming with clients. I'm working with clients one-on-one. Referrals come in from counselors, from pastors, from people who know, someone in their life that's really struggling. A lot of the clients I work with are 2 or 3 or 4 or more years out past a loss, which a lot of people, that surprises some people, where maybe the support in their life has dropped off and they really need a place to process. So that's one area that I'm doing. And then, of course, I have a whole another area of my life that is some volunteer work. And it's fun at this stage of life when it's not all necessarily about what we have to do, but what we get to choose to do. And so I am working with I work with an organization called alongsideministrywives.com that helps with working with supporting pastors' wives all over the world. I am doing a girls' Bible study in my home for high school girls with another leader, another almost empty nester like me. So they'll all be here tomorrow night. So I have kind of a volunteer side of my life and then a vocational side of my life. And I'm really grateful for both. And I'm encouraging that in my boys, the generation beneath me. I'm like, have something, obviously you have your work, but have something that you're passionate about that you volunteer in. There's a whole nother pool of people that you meet there, friendships. And it's just fun to have that other piece of your life too.
And so enriching and fulfilling. And
yes,
yes, work is important, but it doesn't fill everything you need. It doesn't check all the boxes, right?
Right.
So that's
exactly.
Yeah, I wish, not to go too much into my story, but like having talked to you and having talked to Karen about the amazing things that you do with grief. And I really wish I knew about you about 19 years ago, 21 years ago, having suffered a deep loss in my first pregnancy. Grief is just so complicated. And for me, grief has been so complicated. It's the initial shock processing moving forward, but then 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, something will spark and trigger, and it makes you feel like it happened yesterday, right?
Yes.
and no one really talks about grief. Like there's not a whole lot of at least from where I am, I wish I knew about you guys. There's just not a whole lot of resources that you know about that you can process that stuff out 5-10 years down the road of like, wow, this is still. And one thing that I have discovered is like there's no moving past grief, and there's a moving forward, and there's like that kind of thing. But um like loss is intense, loss is deep, loss hits every cell in your body. So
Yes.
when those times come, to not feel like why can I not get over this, or why can I not whatever, that has been super helpful to me, to just allow it to wash over me and not
Yes.
feel like a guilt or shame that like I haven't moved past it.
Hmm.
um
Right.
but
Because you're right. It's a lifelong thing.
yeah.
One of my stories from talking with a widow, it was exactly what you described. It can be a song, a scent, some. She was standing in front of the orange juice at Walmart, and that was her husband's favorite.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she just lost it in front of the orange juice at Walmart. And people are staring like, what do we do? And what's wrong? And so it's a struggle that we call those grief bursts, where it takes you off guard. You weren't planning for that in your day. And it was just something that just grabbed you, and then leaning into that and processing that.
Yeah.
So it's, you are exactly right. It's a lifelong journey.
Well, it's a lifelong journey. And for me, like I said, it's coming to the acceptance of that's just how it is. That's just how it
Right.
presents, and to not fight it.
Right.
Just to allow it to wash over me, and however I can reflect on it, and then I'm okay. Right. But
Right.
getting past like the feeling of like, cause I'm super performance driven. So it was like, it runs deep. Right. So yeah. And then the other thing that you do with Ministry Wives, my husband was a pastor for he's been in ministry for years and years and years, but specifically a pastor for quite a few years, and dealt with a lot of church hurt through him being a pastor, and things like that. So the two things that you're involved in are just so incredibly important, so needed, so amazing. I just want to tell everyone because I just want everyone to know that there's resources out there for those two specific things.
Right. And one of the things that I love, and I love telling this to people who are in midlife, is that we have opportunities at this stage of life for God to redeem some of what all those decades that we've been through,
Yeah.
mistakes that we've made, where now I'm getting to share with pastors' wives that are younger than me, and share some of here's what I did, and I wouldn't do that again. Here's some things I would repeat. And so God redeeming some of what we've been through to help somebody else is a really cool part of this life stage. And so
Yeah,
any chance, to lean into that is really fun.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, women need women, right? I true believer, and we need to be in relationship with women of all seasons.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. I've
um,
learned some incredible things from people that are half my age.
yeah.
And things that I want to write down and take with me. And so you're exactly right. Having women of all different seasons in our lives is so enriching going
It
forward.
is. Yes, 100%. Um, so in this huge kind of, I would assume scary, although you find joy in the intimidating, so that's amazing. Transition, and really have no idea where the Lord is going to take you. How did you navigate those fears and doubts in that starting over process?
I had in the moments of doubt, one of the cool things about being in midlife is you have watched miracle after miracle after miracle that God has done. And so when I stood there at the beginning of this journey going, how in the world is someone my age going to, I've never dealt with student loans, all that stuff. Like I mean, I really had no idea how
Sure.
I was going to go back to school. When my kids are in high school, we're looking at college for them. I mean, this didn't make a lot of sense on the timeline. And I just had to stop and remind myself, like, from where you started, look at all God has done with providing and providing and providing. He can do that again. If this was his idea, that is something he can provide for. And he 100% did. So I'm standing on the other side of it now with the diploma saying, God did that. I didn't do it. And then the other thing, when you talked about the doubts, is I had to speak directly into the doubt of, aren't you a little old for this?
Oh, yeah.
Because if you look back to Genesis, Sarah got her biggest assignment of her life in her 90s.
Yeah.
So I'm not too old. You're not too old to go back to school or try something new, or something that might have looked impossible a couple decades ago. God brings that back up in a new context. And when you've walked with him for a long time and you've seen what he can do, it gives you the courage to jump.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exciting. I remember, so I'm kind of halfway through my journey of like becoming a Christian life coach. So I am coaching, but I'm also in school and stuff like that. And when I was thinking about this transition of changing careers and starting midlife, I remember talking to my husband, and he's very incredibly supportive, but he's also super, super positive and forward thinking. Like he's very much a visionary. But he was like, okay, so 10 years from now, what happens if you don't do this? Like, where are you into? So it was just such a good reframe of vision of what do you want your life to look like 10 years from now? If you don't do this, what is it going to look like? And are you going to regret it? Like, I just think it was such a good vision question for me to get out of my own way of doubt and am I too old? And why am I starting over? Like what? It was a super helpful vision question that he posted to me. And I was like, okay, yeah, no, this is what I want to do. So let's put in the work and do it. Yeah, so it's exciting. That kind of stuff is so exciting. And I've said this before, women in midlife have so much to offer.
Yes.
And what you said of like remembering the miracles and those experiences and sharing those experiences, women in midlife has been through so many life challenges and experiences and joy. We have so much wisdom and experience to offer. Reinventing yourself career-wise is just one avenue to be able to like capitalize on that and experience that and share that with other people. I think it's exciting. Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So another fun part of reinventing yourself was through travel and adventure and fun, which I love. So what mindset do you think is important to have for adventure in midlife?
This echoes a little bit of the conversation that you just talked about with your husband. In Texas, we would pronounce this girl, G-U-R-L. And so this conversation I have with myself is, girl, do you have time? Girl, do you have time to be scared about this? You don't. Are we going to just wait on this for the next 10 years? Or are we going to do it? And so there's that conversation with yourself of, you really don't have another 10 years to play around with this. If this is something that you feel called to, in the King James Version, it would be do it. So that's kind of the mindset that I've had in this life is, do you have another 10 years to be scared about this? Or is this opportunity in front of you right now and God's freed up some other things? If we're not in the car line every afternoon like we used to be,
yeah.
If we're not cooking huge amounts of food like we used to be, there is usually in this stage of life, there is some additional space that we didn't have 10 or 20 years ago. And so it's that questioning of and bringing it before God, saying, God, what do you want me to do with this time that I have now? How can I use it the very best that I can? Mm-hmm. And for this chapter of my life, my new life verses are from Ephesians. I want to read those to you. It's Ephesians 5:15 and 16. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. And so that is the something I go back to over and over and over again of, you have an opportunity. Girl, you have an opportunity. Are you going to chicken out because So to give you an example, I really don't like flying. I really haven't for years. But been some ministry opportunities that have come up in the last couple years where in order to get to that, I was going to need to fly.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the conversation. And God knows that about me. He made me. And so I see it as no coincidence that something that had scared me for so long came up in this stage of life of, are you going to not do this because you're scared? Are you going to not do that? Are you going to let that stand in the way? And so what's on the other side of some of those fears are really beautiful, fun things.
Yeah.
And so that's that conversation that I keep having over and over again of, are you really going to let this pass you by, this opportunity that is talked about in Ephesians, because you're scared?
Mm.
So that's been a challenging but fun part of this stage of life.
Yeah, I mean that cuts to the core, right? Like that cuts right in there of the why of why are you delaying? Why are you saying no to this? Yeah, yeah. You can't
Yeah,
really avoid it. You have to answer. You have to answer that question.
right. I was laughing about this with some women who are a little bit older than me when I, was launching my business a few years back. And I said, y'all, I really do not have 10 more years to play around with this. If we're going to do it, it's now. And they're like, yeah, you don't. You're old. So, and we all laugh together because you just, at this stage in life, when your kids are leaving home and you're looking at the next, however many years that God gives you, how are you going to spend that?
Yeah. Yeah. And midlife offers a unique set of like you have more time, you have more maybe financially you have so you have been given this abundant like gifts from the Lord. How are you going to use it? Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. When you are not buying fruit snacks anymore in bulk, it's
Or
not a line item anymore.
youth sports or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Um, what are you discovering about yourself in this new season of empty nesting?
Um, I would say investing in the next generation. And that is not something I thought a lot about up until this point, but you see it in the New Testament, in the early church, of this directive for the older women to pour into the younger.
Yeah.
And so knowing that, I keep that in mind as opportunities like we just talked about in Ephesians pop up. So within the last 6 months, we had an opportunity at our church for there's a whole high school girls Bible study that lost one of their leaders, and they needed someone new to jump in and help lead that and host it. And that was nowhere on my radar at all. But in light of Ephesians, in light of where I am right now, I was like, you know what, girl, you've got an empty dining room table. You have space at your table to do this. Do it. And so those types of opportunities, and then pouring into pastors' wives that are younger than I am. So what is it that we can do with what we've been through to pour into the next generation? So that's something that is really in the forefront of my mind in this life stage.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I mean, how I did not grow up with any kind of mentoring and things like that. So how amazing those girls, even if they don't realize it now, looking forward, when they're looking back or whatever, how incredibly blessed they will feel to have that much mentorship and love and care and intentionality in their lives in such a formative time. Like I would have loved that so much. So yeah.
I love, like, it was a week or two ago, I got to speak this over them. And I just said, around this table, y'all are leaders. I know you may not see yourself like that, but there's going to be times as leaders, you may be called to a lonely road, a place that maybe somebody else doesn't, you perceive it, but somebody else doesn't perceive it. And so to get to speak that over them, and just the look on their faces of speaking this over them, like, you are leaders. I see this in you. I'm calling that out in you. And what an incredible opportunity at this stage in life to speak that over people that are, in the next upcoming generation. That matters.
And that, I mean, when you were saying that, I immediately had a picture of oil being poured over, um, being anointed and being called, like you are new leadership in Old Testament.
Right.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
It's a,
Yes.
yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah,
Um,
it's an exciting part of this. I want to call people that are in midlife to that. Like there's things that you have been given a limited time to
mm,
pour into the next generation.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, instead of complaining about the next generation, pour into them, right? I feel like
Right.
there's a lot of complaining about what
Yes.
they're doing, what they're not doing, like that kind of thing. Okay. Well, then engage with them,
Right.
pour into
Right.
them. Yeah.
Right. You've got
Yeah.
seeds to plant in them that matter for the next upcoming generation. So we've got a limited time to do that.
Yeah.
So that puts some fire under all of us in the midlife age, of we're unlimited time to do this.
Mm,
So it's really important while you have the opportunities in front of you to take those.
yeah. Yeah. So one thing that we talked about, and this is such a coaching, I mean, this is what coaching is kind of based on, is growth, is forward
Yes.
movement, is looking to the future, desires, values, um, forward focus. So in focusing on the future and not the past, right?
Right.
Um, so what piece of wisdom do you think is important to impart to women in midlife in regards to forward momentum?
So one of the things that I like to talk with people about, sometimes it's my clients, is grief and loss has taught us a lot by force. So when I
Mm,
talk with someone that is grieving or has lost a lot, there's a lot they've learned they never wanted to learn.
mm,
So if you flip the script on that in midlife, what is it that you could choose to learn?
mm.
Not what you've been forced to learn, but in taking the reins in your hands and saying, I'm going to choose to learn this. And what amazing things can come out of that. One of the things that I am choosing to learn in this stage of my life is writing. So I'm in a team in one of the volunteer arenas that I'm in, and we critique each other's writing. We cheer each other on in writing, and the things God's doing with that it's incredible. And so rather than by force, it's now what is by choice. And you
Mm.
have that in front of you as someone in midlife. What am I going to choose now to learn?
Oh, wow. I love that. Yeah. I mean, having walked through some intense periods of grieving and loss, you're right. We did not choose any of that. We did not choose that learning.
Right.
That, yeah, that's beautiful. And it's so empowering to think of it that way of what do you choose to learn now? It's a beautiful reframe of that.
Yeah. So that's something I love to challenge people with, whether it's my clients or someone that's, wrestling with this midlife
Yeah.
age, is what could you choose? If you're not necessarily shuttling people to piano lessons and soccer and all the things you used to do. So what could you choose, and what might God do with that?
Mm.
Because there's a beautiful motivation to learn or to do something new when you know that on the other side of it, there's someone that needs your help or someone that you can bless. And so it's not a question I can answer for people. It's
Mhm.
something, it's that a conversation and a wrestle that they have with God.
Can I ask you, do you remember any, like some of the fun responses that people have given you? That have you gotten responses, or is it more like contemplative for them to think about?
A lot of it's contemplative, but some of the fun things that I've watched people in midlife do. So a close friend of mine who's also a pastor's wife, she was going to enroll herself in dance lessons,
Awesome.
and something so outside the box, so beyond. I mean, she's an LPC by vocation. And so this is so outside the box of what she would normally do, but I cannot begin to tell you the delight on her face of, I'm going to try something new. I know that I'm not going to be an expert at it. I know I'm going to fail at it. I know I'm going to have to work at it, but this just something new, something that was, going to just bring a new spark in her life that she didn't have previously. She was super excited about talking about this. So there's just I've heard people, say, I'm going to try a new instrument. I'm going to, there's just some things in this stage of life that I think you can try, put your toe in the water for the first time and see what happens. That was the challenge that I had from someone who said to me, Julie Lynn, just take one grad school class. If you don't like it, you don't have to stay.
Right.
But just try it. And I was so captivated with that first class. It went from there. So just sticking your toe in the water and seeing what might happen. It's okay to try something new that you choose.
Yeah, my sister always says, always be learning, never stop learning. It keeps you young. It keeps you,
it does.
it keeps you interesting, like, right? Yeah. So like she's learning French. So that's her new thing right now. Yeah.
Yes. I that's something that's also crossed my mind is I got through high school Spanish and never went farther than that. And that's something I think could be an incredible connecting point with people. So that's something that I've toyed with in my mind related to midlife. So I love those kinds of stories are what are just so inspiring of what could you choose to learn in this life stage.
Yeah, because then that's exciting to actually start thinking about diving deep into like who you are now, right? Who I am now is not the same person as who I was when I was, 20. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah. And embracing that change isn't change is good. Change can be fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We did this for the kids for so long. I mean, planning out, school things and activity. I mean, I remember in April sitting down and like planning all this stuff for them for the summers. And now that they're on their own, it's okay, how can I do some of that? I learned that skill, so I know how to do it. But how can I apply that with where I am in midlife right now? And that's a challenge for a lot of people is because it's like, it was easy to do it for the kids, but doing it for yourself is a whole nother thing.
Oh, for sure. It's like tapping into that vulnerability piece, right?
Right.
Being comfortable in the uncomfortable, being comfortable of like, okay, this may not work out, but that's okay. That's fine. And I think, I think in our pre-interview, I mentioned to you, when I was thinking about my career transition in midlife, I kept coming back to, I want to be purposeful, not busy. Right.
Right.
I want to have purpose. I don't want to just be busy. I don't want to be filling my time. So that was a huge component to why I landed on coaching, because it was just a way for me to use some of the gifts and talents that the Lord has already given me in a very purposeful way.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah,
that's the part I told you. I was like, Anne Marie, you need to quote yourself. Like, that's so good.
Oh, man. So how do you focus on what still can be accomplished or experienced instead of what has ended?
So when I worked in the hospice world, one of the things that was in our training for all hospice personnel was that when we are working with a patient and their family, we do not spend time or waste time talking about what the patient can't do. Because that just lowers morale for everybody, for the patient, for the family. So when we go in and we're working with a hospice patient, we're looking at it through the lenses of what can you still do and what do you want to do and how can we help you reach that goal? So I really love talking about this with people who are in midlife. Instead of focusing on what I can't do anymore, it's what can I do? And then beyond that, what have I been called to do? And so that keeps it, like you said, there's this forward thinking, and it's okay. I love telling people too, it's okay to mourn what you've lost. It's okay to miss what you need to miss at this stage of life. There's a lot more behind you now. But in my situation, I really do not choose, in light of the Ephesians verse, to spend every day standing in front of 2 empty bedrooms where my kids used to be and just camp there. That's not the way that I want to spend the next 20 years. And so with that in mind, it's exactly the same type of thing that we talk about with hospice patients is what can you do? and put your focus and your energy there. What gifts and talents are there that you feel that God is calling you to share, and to look at that possibility. And when you focus more on the possibilities than what's behind you and what's lost, I think there's just something really fun in my situation. It's been just a lot of fun to see what God does with that I never could have imagined.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel in my mind and in my life and my season, I have never experienced more surrender than I have before. And I'm a very planning kind of person. You know, I'm the family manager, have always been, like, probably similar to like your experiences, things like that. So sometimes I feel in your capability isn't always a good thing. It can keep you from reliance, right? Because I'm good at this, I don't need your help, right? Either a person or Jesus. So in this stage of life, it has taught me so much of, oh, wow, okay, let's surrender because I don't know. And that's okay, but God does. So let's just allow him to work and move and however he sees fit. So it has been such a spiritual growth point in my life of midlife, of true, like, praying more, relying on God more, and notice, like, identifying that my capability sometimes gets in my own way, right? Um,
Yes.
and not to be scared of that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes. And this exhortation that I heard, this has stayed with me too, is no one else in the world has your voice. No one.
Beautiful.
God created you with all that he created you to be. And nobody else in the world has that voice. And so therefore, to take what God has put inside you and where are you to use that, especially in this act 2 that we're living. And that it matters, and that to fight against that voice that would say, well, you're too old, it doesn't matter anymore. If you are still walking and breathing and interacting, that voice, that very unique voice that God put inside you, is meant to be shared. Yeah. And to find out where and how in the question, like you said, of who am I now?
Well, that's a beautiful, beautiful place to end. I don't think I could end any better than that. Thank you so much, Julie Lynn, for coming on, for being willing to talk about this. If you would like to get a hold of her, again, her website or her email website is www.julielynashley.com. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Anne Marie.